Okay, everyone, good evening and welcome to the Union Station Auditorium on the downtown campus of Cape Fear Community College. I'm John Evans of WECT. Thank you for coming here, and those of you watching online, thank you for doing so as well, to join us for this town hall forum featuring candidates running for the 4 open seats on the new Hanover County Board of Education. We have 8 candidates here this evening. Each one will have an opportunity for an opening statement, 90 seconds. Each one will have an opportunity for a closing statement of 90 seconds. We will have questions asked by reporters from our 3 members of the media consortium. Those reporters are Michael Praats of WECT News, Rachel Keith of WHQR, and Brenna Flanagan of Port City Daily. They will ask questions to one of the candidates. Each one of you will get a question in that round. You'll have 90 seconds to answer that question. Then we'll come back. I'll have 2 larger issue, wider issue questions that all of you will answer. And then we will have questions from the audience sent in already to our 3 media organizations or written down this evening by members of our audience. Audience members, you will be able to get a white index card during the opening statements of the candidates. You could write your questions down on those cards. Shay Carver will be collecting the cards. Shay will be here if anybody wants to get her attention to get a card. You can get Shay's attention. She will bring it up to the reporters for that section of the forum this evening. One thing we do want to let you know, candidates, is you'll have 90 seconds, basically, for every answer, is the way we're doing it. What we are doing, though, is if a candidate is called out or criticized by name by a member of the panel this evening during an answer, we are going to give that candidate 60 seconds for a rebuttal. We don't want that to go without being answered. So if somebody mentions an incumbent member of the board, initials JJ, we know that person will be able to get a rebuttal. We know a challenger who lives in Riceville Beach, PB, that person will then get a rebuttal opportunity. So we don't want that to go unanswered, so we're giving everybody the opportunity to do that. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? You all have microphones. You all know you'll have to share along the way. What I have also done is during the questions, candidate opening statements will go alphabetically, closing statements will go reverse alphabetical. But for the answers and the Q&A part from the reporters, from myself, and for the audience questions, we're mixing it up. And so you don't know if you're going to be first. You don't know if you're going to be last. You're not always going to follow the same person. Okay? We're going to get started. Again, thank you everybody for joining us for the first of 3 forums. We'll tell you more about what's planned ahead in a moment. We are going to go, Ben Shopman is down front. Ben is our timer this evening. He has a timer, 90 seconds, 1 minute and 30 seconds. Those of you who have been in forums with me in the past know I'm not going to cut you off at 1 minute and 31 seconds, but I'm not going to let you go and say, and after that. You're not going to start a new thought process, but we're going to let you continue the one that you're starting. Okay? We're going to begin our candidate opening statements, 90 seconds for each one of the candidates. We're going to go alphabetically, and that is New Hanover County School Board candidate Josie Barnhart. Josie, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you so much for being here tonight, and those folks watching at home. I'm going to give a shout out to my kids because I said I'm going to be on TV. So, hey, guys. My name is Josie Barnhart, and I'm a mom of a 3, 5, and 7-year-old, and my background is teaching. I went into the profession because I love kids. I worked in a Title I middle school in Texas as low income, for those who don't know what Title I is, as well as an elementary school in Florida, Title I. My kids currently go to Wrightsboro Elementary, which is the Title I school here, and I think that coming into this realm, I came in opposition to a lot of our board members and was very outspoken about getting our kids back in school because I knew what a detriment it was going to be for them. It became a very toxic environment from different board members in our community, and I believe that as parents and as teachers, we need to be working together for the best academic success possible for our kids, and that was not happening. So after about a year of being nudged, I said, okay, fine, I'll do this. And so for me, I think that we need to be focused on making sure we make parents our allies, making sure that schools are safe. We started off this school year with a school shooting last year, and no child should feel like they are not safe going to school. And I think that we need to refocus the directional shift of this board to create opportunity and have accountability so that all kids get a quality education no matter where you're zoned for here in New Hanover County. So again, my name is Josie Barnhart.
Thank you very much. Next, for his opening statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County Board of Education candidate Nelson Bullier. Mr. Bullier, you have 90 seconds, sir.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much to all my fellow candidates and for the audience. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I'm Nelson Bullier, and I'm a lot of things. I have an interesting background. I'm a veteran. I served in the U.S. Army in Afghanistan and Germany. I am a law enforcement veteran. I was in law enforcement for 6 years after that. I am an educator. I'm proud to teach right here at Cape Fear Community College. And I am married to an educator and the father of 2 children who attend New Hanover County schools. And being a board member, it's a lot like being a parent. First, there's a lot of arguing. But also, you know, when you hold your kid for the first time, you have all these ideas about what you're going to do. And the reality of the situation is you end up doing maybe 1 or 2 of those things, but most of the job is dealing with fires you never thought would start in the first place. And despite what you've seen occasionally on Tuesday nights, this board has accomplished some pretty good things. We have ended suspensions for our youngest learners. We're in the process of ending them for all of our students. It takes time. It takes work. It takes collaboration. We have a first-class Title IX program to totally change how we deal with sexual assault, sexual harassment in our schools. But the thing about it, just like being a parent, you have to work. You know, they say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes 4 board members and a staff and a community to get things done on the Board of Education. I've done that, and I'd like to keep doing it for you for 4 more years.
Thank you, sir. Next, for her opening statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County School Board candidate Pat Bradford. Ms. Bradford, 90 seconds, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. I am Pat Bradford. Good evening, everyone online. The first thing I want you to know about me is that I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And that means I'm accountable to him. Now, the benefit to you is I'm going to be accountable to you as well. Second thing I want you to know about me is that I'm a mom and I'm a grandmother, and I can do this. I am well prepared for this. In 2006, the courts in New Hanover County, the 5th District, I did the training, I did the vetting, I did the fingerprinting to be sworn in as a guardian ad litem, as a child advocate. The court determined I was a good choice to stand up for the rights of children. The third thing I want you to know about me is that I don't have a political agenda. I don't have a personal agenda. For me, it's all about the children. And that's what I bring to the table. I'm a business owner in New Hanover County. I'm the publisher of Wrightsville Beach Magazine. I bring a business head to it. I bring a volunteer's head to it who has worked in this city for 20 years with the least of these. I bring those things to the table. I bring my heart. I have a heart for children, and that's what you're going to see me do on this board. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, for his opening statement this evening, please, I know you all want to cheer, but please, you're taking time away from the candidate later on tonight. Thank you, ma'am. Next, for his opening statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County School Board candidate Dorian Cromartie. Mr. Cromartie, you have 90 seconds, sir.
Thank you all for being here. One of the things I want to tell you all is that our school system is great, but it could be better. I'm a product of New Hanover County Schools, and I can tell you that from my experiences from volunteering in this wonderful school system that could be better, is that all of our schools need to be safer. We need to set the bar higher for our kids and our teachers, but we need to make sure that they are fully funded and have the resources available to them to be successful teachers and students. We also need to let the parents know that they do not get a pass, that we are all in this together, and that it takes a village to raise a child. But learning is 24/7. It goes home with you. One of the other things I want you to know that I'm pushing for is equal opportunity in all schools for workforce preparation. These businesses in New Hanover County have a lot to offer. And we need to pair with the Chamber of Commerce to make sure that their workforce is prepared, having internships and vocational training to go forward to be productive members of society. So I'm Dorian Cromartie. I'm running for your New Hanover County Board of Education, and I'm here for the children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next for her opening statement, will be New Hanover County School Board candidate Judy Justice. Ms. Justice, 90 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here tonight, too. My name is Judy Justice, and I'm actually presently on the school board. I've been there for 4 years. And my background, well, the reason I ran in the first place is because all of us up here, I know, care about kids. That's been my passion since my 20s. When I was younger, I didn't realize how much it mattered. So what I did is I've gone into education, and I've got a extensive background. I've worked as an educator from a teacher to a central office administrator. I've been in 4 or 5 different school districts. I've worked for nonprofit in education. I've just totally focused and learned a heck of a lot over the decades I've been in education about how to best educate our children. Now, one of the reasons I'm running is because I came back to retire after retirement several years ago, and I was shocked to see that the same people were on the board since the 90s. So I ran, I've been on the board, and one of the things I've discovered is, as somebody said, it's not easy, but you've got to be focused on what's best for the kids. But you can't do it without having the staff also be able to be focused on. You can't separate the two. And I guess there's 3 R's that I focus on. One is resources. Our schools are so underfunded. Second is respect. We've got to have respect for our students and our teachers and their parents. And another thing, especially the teachers at this point, we've got to have rewards. Our staff, in order to be able to even teach in this expensive county, needs to be paid properly. So thank you for considering me, and please vote for me if you want to improve the schools.
Thank you, ma'am. Next for her opening statement this evening, we will go to school board candidate Melissa Mason. Ms. Mason, you have 90 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out, and thank you for hosting this. I am Melissa Mason, and I am running for the school board. I am a mom of 2 boys who currently attend our schools. I'm an educator of 17 years, I undercounted, 17 years with a master's in deaf education. And I'm a military wife. And what I hope that we can address tonight is not name calling, it's not personal attacks, but policies. Because our policies are the problem right now. Our policies right now are hurting our kids academically. They're overburdening our teachers with non-academic tasks. They're damaging our kids emotionally. They're not keeping our kids physically safe. And they're excluding parents. It is my goal to fight for all of those things, and I hope that you can see that in my answers this evening. Again, I am Melissa Mason. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Next for her opening statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County School Board candidate Veronica McLaurin-Brown. Ms.
Thank you.
McLaurin-Brown, you have 90 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank everyone for coming out and supporting our political process. My name is Veronica McLaurin-Brown. I have worked in New Hanover County for more than 30+ years as a teacher, a principal, a special assistant to the superintendent, and a countywide observer of teachers. I also was a substitute teacher as a 12th grader in my small town in South Carolina. I had retired and was busy traveling the world when the pandemic hit. I was looking for something better to do than just watch Judge Judy, and I got online with the NAACP Parent Council who was working on suspensions. In March 2021, they went to the school board and asked them to end suspensions for elementary kids. It was in their 2016 strategic plan. I decided to, once they said voted 7-0 to not do anything, co-founded a group called Love Our Children, decided that we would work, inform people, and make sure that they passed the policy before we stopped, or somebody would be throwing dirt on our bodies. We would still be working on it. We successfully passed the policy in March 2022, and because of that, I decided that I wanted to run for some other policies.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, very much. Next, for his opening statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County School Board candidate Pete Wildeboer. Mr. Wildeboer, 90 seconds, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for being here this evening and those at home watching. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Pete Wildeboer. I am a teacher, was a teacher, coach, athletic director, principal, assistant principal. Spent 34 years in the classroom, so I know what's going on in the schools. I'm still going to schools all the time. I was in 3 different school districts here. I tried all 3, loved all 3. Was actually the principal of the year in Pender County in the year 13-14. My wife is also a longtime educator, spent her whole career in New Hanover County Schools. So we are passionate about helping our students, and that's my why. Why am I doing this? I had somebody ask me the other day, why are you running for re-election, Mr. Wildeboer? I said very simply, because if not me, who? We have to do this. I had folks running out of New Hanover County Schools to Pender County Schools, to my school, North Topsail Elementary School, begging to get in my school for the education. So the 3 things I really want us to work on, number 1, we need to improve our board. Our board as a whole it's dysfunctional. We've heard that time and time again. We need that. I've done things like put the Roberts Rules of Order in place. So we're going to be trained again in that and hopefully use that so we can move forward. But we need that's not the end-all be-all for sure. We need to keep our students safe. You know, a year ago we had a shooting. Just a few weeks ago we had a child die on a local campus. So we have to keep kids safe and work on their education.
Thank you, sir,
so
very much.
Pete Wildeboer.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I beg your pardon. I misspoke. You'll have 60 seconds to answer the questions that I ask, that every one of you will answer. I apologize for that. You'll have 90 seconds for the ones that the reporters ask and the ones from the audience. We're going to bring up our 3 reporter moderators. You'll have 90 seconds to answer the question, candidates. If they ask a follow-up, we're going to give you another minute to answer a follow-up question based on your response. Once again, we will go with Michael Praats of WECT, Brenna Flanagan of Port City Daily, and Rachel Keith of WHQR. And I believe, Michael, you're up first.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. This first question is for Melissa Mason. Ms. Mason, you've accused the district and their staff of engaging in grooming behavior. Do you still believe this? And if so, why and what is your evidence? And how do you think staff and teachers feel when they hear this from you when you're also there to represent them?
A lovely question. I just want to start out by defining grooming behavior for you. Grooming behavior is when an abuser violates boundaries repeatedly so that a potential victim can be accepting of those boundary violations later on. And when I initially heard about the gender support plan, which is where all of this started, the gender support plan was introduced back in October of 2020. And honestly, it's about transgender kids. And here's the thing. Our trans kids, absolutely we need to be concerned about because they have a higher suicide rate. But the problem is when you separate them from their community, their family, and you keep secrets from their parents, you're isolating the most vulnerable. It's damaging, and it's dangerous to do. We need to love our kids no matter what, and we need to protect our kids no matter what. It does not matter whether they are gay, straight, or trans. We have to protect them from early sexualization. And that is where I first saw the gender support plan, was where I first saw that grooming that was beginning to happen. Thank you.
All right, that's it for me. We'll go on to the next, which will be Brenna.
So this next question is for Pete Wildeboer. Pete, at the August Board of Education meeting, you took issue with the way in which the Wilmington 1898 coup d'etat is being taught in the district. You told Port City Daily, I think there's a lot of thought right now around 1898 that there were a bunch of really bad Republicans that chased around Democrats. The school's curricula explains the people leading the coup were white supremacists, part of the 1898 Democratic Party that opposed civil rights. So, How would you like the district to teach about the parties involved in the coup, and what other specific facts should be taught?
Great question. Thank you very much for that. I'm a truth person. I think we need to teach the truth. So unfortunately, I've heard a lot of times, like I say, I'm in and out of schools a lot. I have not heard per se, but I've heard rumors of people teaching about, you know, the Republicans doing it, and really we need to teach it as it actually happened. It was a horrible thing. Obviously, it's not something we want to repeat. We want to learn from history, and that's what history is all about, is to learn from history so we don't repeat our mistakes. So I think we really need to look into it, making sure, you know, asking our principals to make sure that it's taught factually in the classrooms, and that we are not trying to further divide our students, but teach them the facts so we can learn from that and not have that problem come up again. Because it was a horrible situation. Obviously not something that Wilmington as a whole or New Hanover County wants to say was a good thing in any form or fashion, but we do need to learn from that so that we don't repeat our mistakes. And that's what history is all for. So I think that that's really a really important thing. Thank you.
You also took issue with the terms oppressed, oppressor, and marginalized, telling PCD, I think the concern overall that I've heard is that we don't want to say that people are marginalized people now. How do you think the educators should teach on the history of systemic racism and how that affects people today?
Well, if you remember, that came up in the June meeting before, where our superintendent stood up and said, we are not teaching CRT, and I brought up the fact that Brunswick County actually passed a policy blocking CRT. The state government actually had two different laws put in front of the governor, which he vetoed, that said we will not teach CRT. So obviously there is CRT. I actually went through our deputy superintendent at the time, Ms. Smith, actually went through the whole framework at that time, which she did a very nice job in presenting it. But though I brought the glossary, I had exactly each and every word there, and she had to admit that they are actually in there. So we need to teach, we need to know our students, and that's what it comes all the way back to, is giving every student the best education we can by knowing our students. We need to know our students. We need to do the very, very best for all our students, no matter what skin color they have, no matter what their gender is. We need to do our very, very best each and every day to support our students.
Thank you. And next we have Rachel Keith.
Okay, Judy, this is for you. Judy, the Board of Education has long been accused of acting unprofessionally and dysfunctionally in front of the viewing public. So do you own a particular part of this? And if elected, how would you work to disagree amicably, as the chair has asked the board members to do?
Ew, this audience is great. There is dysfunction on our board, and I have witnessed this. I've been on the board for 4 years now. A lot of it has to do with past situations that were very trying and very difficult for the district. I think a lot of it just came about because of the sexual assault situation. It was extremely tense, lasted for years, still is going on. And during that time, there was a lot of things said behind the scenes. And then we had a new election. And the people elected are, I'm glad they're there. I love it. They're good people. But unfortunately, a lot of that feeling has still remained. And I myself have tried really hard, and thank you that there are new people on the board, to work, and I do. I work well. We've done a lot of good things. But there is still some factions on the board that no matter what comes up, it's a no because of the people that say it, as opposed to whether it's a good idea for the kids or not. That's not how we're supposed to function. There's also extreme rudeness and some behavior coming from leadership that's shocking. It's been going on now, sadly, for months, and it's escalating. Last night was a good example. I don't want to go into that now. But the people responsible are the ones that need to start changing their behavior. And the people that work together need to bring them in and work with them. But it's up to those people that are so resistant to change.
Yeah, and moving forward, I mean, if you're having disagreements with other members, because some of these votes are 5-2, I mean, how are you trying to work with other board members to bring more to potentially your perspective or your point of view?
Well, the great news is if you watched the meeting last night, most of the votes were 4-3. We've actually, it's been a couple months now, there's been wonderful things happening, and some people are understanding that, and we're working together and doing good stuff for the schools. But as I said, you can watch. You can see the people that literally will not work. I'm working with other people, and I hope with this election it brings more people on the board that understand how important it is for us to work together for the kids. Put that first. But it takes, I guess, 7 to work together, and it takes leadership above that to encourage that and work with it. And I can actually say I'm not seeing a lot of that, and I think the public sees it too. We've got to work together better. This election is crucial. And if people are reelected to the board that were having problems before, at some point, and I'm one of them, we need to really try harder. As I said, I'm working very well with members of the board, and we're definitely doing some good things.
Thank you.
This next question is for Veronica. Veronica, you and your advocacy group successfully pushed to end suspensions of students under the age of 8. Are you now working to end suspensions for older students? And if elected, will your advocacy end?
The advocacy that we started was for children in our school system. Since I've been involved in being in the school board, at school board meetings, and I've been there for every meeting except one. I've listened to all the interim meetings or attended them, and I've listened to the committee meetings. And because I've been engaged in that process, I can tell you I have made a personal commitment that the rest of my life will be focused on advocacy for children. And one of the things that we know is that if kids are in school, they're learning. If they're out of school, they're not learning. And we should be, as a system, doing everything we can, using all the research, evidence-based knowledge to train our staff to keep them there, as well as making sure that we're advocating for the resources that staff need. So yes, not just because I'm on the board, because I exist as a person who's passionate about children, I will continue to advocate them until I close my eyes.
Thank you. And in the staff climate survey, teachers are saying that student misbehavior has gotten worse and there's not much accountability for them. How would you like the district to handle student discipline and accountability?
I would like for our staff to use our professional training and apply that to the strategies that we have for working with children. I would like for the system to make sure that we support our staff with the resources that they need. And if they need additional assistance, if they need additional social workers, it is the job of this school board to advocate and get those resources that they need. And most importantly, I want the teachers to tell us what they need, and let's get it done.
Thank you.
Pat, this is for you. I've been watching the call to the audiences for about close to a year and a half now. And at the June 2021 meeting, you said that social emotional learning and equity, diversity, and inclusion are instruments of a socialist agenda in our schools. And at one point you said it was an evil curriculum and accused the district of teaching critical race theory, which it denies. Do you still believe this? And if elected, how would you oversee the district's social emotional learning efforts, as well as working with the new EDI director, Malcolm Johnson?
Took that from the tape?
Yes, the tape.
I don't remember saying those words exactly the way you've quoted them.
Yeah,
But
if you
I'm
go
gonna give
to
it
that meeting at 4:04, the timestamp's there.
Okay. I am a big proponent of the 4 core subjects: reading, writing, math, and civics. If kids can't read, they can't do science. If kids can't do math, they can't do science. Social emotional learning is taking the place of our core subjects, our traditional education. I have said that many times. I don't use the word CRT because it's such a broad umbrella for the things that are happening in the schools. But I do think that devoting 15 minutes every day in the curriculum for social emotional feelings would be better spent teaching children to read. We have kids who are graduating that cannot read. They cannot write. They cannot do math, which means they're hampered for the rest of their life. I was a high school dropout, and I managed to get 2 college degrees. I know how hard that is. We need to go back to the basics, and I'm going to stay with that forever. We need to go back to reading, writing, math, and civics. Thank you.
And how do you define social emotional learning? Because the state it's mandated, part of the curriculum is what the district has said. So what do you think it means for the students and the staff that are teaching it? And what's its purpose?
I don't know the answer to that. I am studying that question. Feelings are awesome. They really are. But at some point, we have to have discipline, and we have to have academics. And I think we're out of balance right now, and everything is focused on social emotional learning. And I want to take it back into balance. So there's some things that are just, I mean, honestly, I believe we need more mental health counseling in our schools. Our kids are traumatized. They're absolutely traumatized. They were out of school for almost 2 years. It's been just a crazy couple of years. And they're traumatized. They need mental health counseling. But I don't know that the curriculum that we've got right now is what's going to accomplish that. I'd like to see the mythical $50,000 from the sale of the hospital to go towards the mental health that it was promised for, to be used in the schools for more mental health. Thank you.
All right, this question is for Josie Barnhart. On your campaign signs, you said you want to give parents a voice in their child's education. You were also an educator at one point. Do you think this message is counter to trusting teachers in their professional ability to deliver what they're teaching? Some teachers have said that they're leaving because they're not trusted or respected, and that parents are having an increasingly and undue influence over content being taught.
I appreciate that question, and like I've said many times before, I believe that parents and teachers are allies. When we talked about curriculum, and I wanted to answer all of those curriculum questions because I'm very into this, our curriculum committee does a really good job with talking about things. When the history standards changed in the summer of 2021, there was a lot of concern because what they changed to is interpretive standards of teaching. And in the curriculum committee, it was brought up by our educators, how are we going to ensure consistent, unbiased teaching is occurring? Okay, so there is absolutely an element of concern of that, yet parents don't have access. So if we don't have access, what happens? It's this big monster of potential what could be taught. And so when you look about things as either good or bad, yes or no, you're not looking for what is the purpose. The purpose is we're supposed to be educating our kids. And if our parents know what is being taught, then we can have accountability in the classroom, and we can ensure that well-rounded teaching is occurring. So when you're talking about giving parents a voice, my catchphrase slogan, what I'm talking about is ensuring that parents are involved with their child's academics. And so I would love to see something be added to our points on our board meetings that parents are able to give feedback, because right now we see different board members giving their perspective. Well, somebody talked to me about this and somebody talked to me about that. If all board members were able to see all the commentary about a topic, I think that would give a lot more cohesiveness. I'm done talking.
All right, thank you. And follow up here, you've mentioned that some teacher attrition rates are due to the system not holding students accountable. In your mind, what consequences would you like to see for student misbehavior, if not restorative justice, and how would you like it to be documented?
Great question. So I pushed back on the grading system because I believed that giving kids a 50 for doing nothing was really hurting them. After a year and a half of pushing back on that, the board decided, oh yeah, that was also a bad idea, and so they changed it. What did they do? They added that element of getting our parents involved with our kids who were not getting what they needed, who were failing, who were not putting in the work, okay? The other thing, we didn't have an accountability system for the attendance policy. Started pushing back on that. When you talk about absenteeism and the risk of dropout rates, those are direct correlations, and we need to have accountability to that. With discipline, the question becomes this. I believe we need to work with hard kids. We work with them through mentorships. We work with them with relationship building. However, what the question that does not get asked is, when we tolerate bad behavior, what are we doing to the rest of the children in the class who are there to learn, who want to grow, and who need to be challenged? That question doesn't get asked enough. And when you look at that and you make justifications on one thing being good or bad, you're not looking at the full picture. So as far as some restorative practices, I understand why there's a need for that. However, pushing kids through the system is not okay.
Great, thank you. I believe our timer might have broke there, but thank you.
Ben, are you working on it? Oh, you're good? Okay. All right, Dorian, this is for you. Wait, did you say wait? Okay. Dorian, you've been vocal at the call to the audience previously about transportation issues, being that some students are not being picked up by buses. So if elected, how do you hope to recruit and then retain district bus drivers? How would you work with the transportation office to ensure that effective communication is going out in terms of these bus schedules?
One of the things that we need to start with is paying our bus drivers more when they start. We also have to look at the fact that the cost of living here costs for $21 an hour. I think that we also need to start looking into paying for our bus drivers to become bus drivers, meaning that we will pay for the training, we will contract you out for X amount of years to retain you, and then get them in turn to recruit other people to be bus driver aides while they're driving, and then those bus driver aides can then in turn also become bus drivers. I mean, if you want someone to work for you, you have to give them a reason to. A lot of people are not becoming bus drivers, would like to become bus drivers, but the cost to do the training is too expensive. $300 is a lot for some people. I have my CDL. But I got that through the good graces of the United States Army. So I think that what we also, and I also think that we also have to realize that transportation is a crucial part of education. If the kid is always showing up late to school, then what is the point of them coming to school if they're missing instruction time? Does that answer your question?
Yes, and a follow-up for that is, you know, the county commission controls most of the local budget for the school district. So they tried really hard, the board, to get an increase for bus drivers and TAs, and they didn't get what was asked. So how would you advocate if you became a board member with your other fellow members? What would you ask for these bus drivers or other classified staff?
So I would ask for a higher pay increase for all staff, certified or not certified, including our substitutes. But that would take having a close relationship with our county commissioners as well as our state legislators, because we do need to organize and strategize with them to get some money from them as well. I understand that it's hard to do, but it can be done. And we also need to look into, I believe the website is North Carolina Grants, and they have a whole slew of grants for education, elementary education, transportation, and so does the federal government. Have several grants. All we have to do is hire the staff for the grants and then let them apply and see what happens. There's money out there, hanging out there, waiting to be claimed, but we're not doing anything about it. And then we also have to look at pairing with our business community and see what they have to offer. You know, a lot of times they want to do things, but they just haven't been asked.
Thank you.
This final question is for you, Nelson. Nelson, you are the board's representative on the calendar committee and have recently been questioned on whether the committee's intentions were represented by the final decision. The committee was in favor of ending the first semester in December, but voted to end in January instead. Can you explain how the committee flipped on that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. In 2020, we were granted a waiver from the state of North Carolina to begin school early to make up for some of this learning loss. And it allowed us to do something we'd been trying to do since I got on the board, which was align our semesters with Cape Fear Community College to benefit our dual-enrolled and AP students. Well, in 2021, the school year was mandated to start on August 20th, I believe. It was the Monday closest to August 26th. Or maybe, I'm sorry, no, it started on August 23rd, which was the Monday closest to August 26th. So the calendar law from the state mandates when school starts for districts. You can lose money, you can lose funding, there are consequences if you violate the calendar law. But because it was the 23rd, it gave us the opportunity to once again align the calendars. It did create some schedule imbalance, some semester imbalance, but we were able to get through that. Come 2022-2023 school year, the mandated start date was August 29th. That created a 13-day semester imbalance, which would have greatly impacted and hurt our students who were taking biology in the first semester, who were taking English in the first semester. It gave them almost 3 weeks less time to master those core subjects, prepare for their EOCs, and get their job done. And so
how would you respond to someone that is going back and watching these meetings, seeing the board talk about the calendar during their board meetings, and not understanding how the calendar committee originally wanted to end in December, but then at the last meeting flipped that decision?
So once our central office staff realized the severity of the imbalance, they thought about it. They recalled our calendar committee and they said, look, we're sacrificing too much. We're sacrificing too many students, and we should change. So they went back, they reconstituted that committee, and the committee voted unanimously to make that change. It is absolutely not perfect, but we are really hampered by this state calendar law. And I think the decision that was made is in the best interest of the district as a whole, because we could not make up that time for those core subjects in the first half of the year.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to go to the second part of our evening, and that is more of the wider ranging questions that each one of you will answer. Again, I've tried to change the order around so that you're not following the same person. The same person is not getting a question first, and so on and so forth. Ms. Justice, I'm going to have you respond to the first question first, and again, 60 seconds for the responses. And audience, if you do have a question that you would like to ask, Shay is down front, and she would have a question, so just get her attention. She'll give you what you need as far as writing the question down. We'll pass it up here, and we'll try to get as many asked and answered as we can. Ms. Justice, again, I apologize for taking the time away from you. The first question for all of you, Ms. Justice, responding first for 60 seconds. The Superintendent, Dr. Charles Faust, has faced criticism from candidates on both the left and the right. If elected to the school board, how do you plan to work with its superintendent? 60 seconds.
I've been working with him, or trying to work with him, for 2 years. We need to listen to the public. We need to listen to the staff. We need to watch actions. We need to provide oversight. There's 7 people on the board, and we have 2 jobs: policy, establishing it, following through with it, and oversight of our superintendent. And I can honestly say I have not seen a lot of that. In fact, previous superintendent, Dr. Markley, and other superintendents, that didn't happen. And that's one of the reasons some of the very sad things happened over the last couple decades. I am providing oversight, and I intend to continue to provide oversight. The other board members need to do also, we need to work together doing that very important job. The actions that he has carried out, this is where the criticism comes from. It's not imaginary, and it is of great concern. I want to work with him, but he has to work with me also. And it's very difficult when you have a man that half the time, and most of the time, won't even talk to you.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Ms. McLaurin-Brown, If elected to the New Hanover County Board of Education, how do you plan to work with the superintendent? 60 seconds, ma'am. And don't forget your microphone.
Last week, the board chair and Dr. Foss I met with them, and they gave an overview of the things that they were doing. When they finished, my idea, after listening to everybody and the senior staff, was as a board member, I needed to concentrate on two things: effective policy and effective accountability. I asked Dr. Foss what would he consider were the most important ideas for improving policy. While he did not answer that question, he did say that he felt the thing that the school system needed was accountability to the policies that we have. And the second thing was a culture of excellence and high expectations.
Okay.
I will work on that.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Ms. Barnhart, next for you, if elected to the Board of Education, how do you plan to work with the school superintendent? 60 seconds, ma'am.
I plan to continue the way that I have been working with him. I have been very outspoken about lots of different things, and many of the board members have chosen to engage in dialogue with why. The reality is, if you never are willing to ask and bring up issues, they're never going to get fixed. And how you do that is with accountability. And so I loved what Veronica said about what Dr. Faust had said. We were in the same meeting about accountability. And that is what is missing. There's discrepancies between our programs in our school. We need to fix that. We need to have accountability for it and a plan in place that we're doing so. One of the things that got brought up was the CTE program. And I see different things that are happening that there's trying to bring back that accountability. And I classify myself as a dreamer, and then after you have the dream, you have to be the doer of what's going to happen. And so when you look about a collective vision of people who are leading the district, you have to say, where do you want to go? And then you have to say, how are we going to make it happen? And that's what I plan to do.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Mason, if elected to the New Hanover County School Board, how do you plan to work with the superintendent?
I don't. I believe that Dr. Faust needs to be fired. And I've spoken with many individuals within our community who are dissatisfied with his job that he has done. We have plenty of cause to fire him. We just need the will to use it. As of right now, in my studying and investigation and working on this, we have at least 23 statutes and policies that he most likely violated regarding seclusion room use. We have to hold him accountable, and we need to let whoever comes next know that we hold them accountable too.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wildeboer. Mr. Wildeboer, please, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Mr. Wildeboer, if elected, how do you plan to work with the current superintendent?
Thank you for that question. An old friend of mine, a principal friend of mine, one time used this phrase, and it really fits. You either help the person out or you help them out. And what that means very simply is you help them to improve or you help them out the door. And that's what we need to do. We need to have clear goals. You know, in his defense, and I'm not defending the man, but in his defense, the former board didn't even give him goals. They just said, oh, go have a good time. I went into a school with Dr. Faust at one point, and the principal, who I knew well, came up and greeted me and said, this is 6 months into his tenure, said, it's nice to finally meet you. What? Yeah. I mean, so we have to hold him accountable. I agree with everything that's been said before. We need to give him clear direction, and either he follows it or we do find a way to get rid of him. And I don't look at a situation that will cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I do think we need to make sure the man does the job for the best of our students, and that's what it's all about.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bradford, I'd like to ask your response, ma'am. If elected to the school board, how do you plan to work with the superintendent?
Okay, I was in the meeting on Thursday morning, and it was very interesting to hear from all of the people in the central office and the superintendent, and he did say that we are all about accountability. I run a business, I run a team, and have a track record in the community. I'm accountable. If I mess up, I'm accountable. If I do something stupid, I'm accountable. The buck always stops with me. So I am going to hold Superintendent Faust accountable. And as Mr. Wildeboer said, we're going to give him a set of instructions. That's one of the jobs of the school board, is to tell the superintendent what you want, and then you hold him accountable. If he doesn't do that, yeah, you fire him. He has 2 years left on his contract. I've only talked to him one-on-one 2 times now. I believe in knowing people by the fruit that they give off, and I don't have a good read on him yet, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and hold him accountable.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Cromartie, if elected to the New Hanover County School Board, how do you plan to work with the superintendent?
The way that I've been working with him is I met him through volunteering at a school, and I told him my issues that I had with the school. And a lot of the issues we do have are some schools are following some policies differently than others. And so I tell him what issues I have, and then he hears them, and sometimes he says, well, did you tell the principal? And I'll tell the principal. But the first rule of leadership that I learned in the military was everything is your fault. And I know Dr. Faust wants to do a good job, but it is my job as a school board member to hold him accountable as well as the school, and to realize that maybe there's something else we need to add to the policy to make it better. Does that answer your question?
That's your answer, sir. Thank you. Mr. Bullier, I'm going to ask you, sir, if elected to the New Hanover County Board of Education, how do you plan to work with the superintendent?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing a board can do is hire a superintendent and do a strategic plan. And when we hired Dr. Faust, the thing I was most focused on was ethics, because you can teach anybody anything, but you can't teach somebody to be more ethical. It is our job to hold the superintendent accountable. There have been a lot of wonderful successes under Dr. Faust, including a new strategic plan. He's worked with our county commissioners to help our teachers become the #1 paid teachers in the state. He worked with our commissioners again to make sure that our teachers could move to the front of the line to get vaccinated. We have to hold him accountable. We have that strategic plan. We have goals. We have a path that we are on right now as a board, and it's Dr. Faust's job to manage that vision and to get us there. But when you hold people accountable, you're not always going to be the most popular guy. So when everybody says, yeah, we have this problem in our schools, we have this problem in our schools, and then Dr. Faust says it, he's not always a warm, cuddly guy, but he's an ethical man, and I think he's the guy to get us to where we need to go.
Thank you, sir, very much. Next, we have one more of the larger issue questions. Ms. Bradford, I'm going to ask you to respond first to the second question, ma'am. The current chair of the school board has said at the last town hall meeting that the biggest problem facing this board is, this is the quote, letting the school system manage problems, end quote. There are those on the board who want to play a more active oversight role, and there are those who do not. The question, where do you see yourself if elected in the debate? More oversight role of the school system or less of an oversight role in the school system?
You're asking, is the board, do I think the board should have more oversight in the school system?
Would you as a board member have more oversight, favor more oversight, or favor less oversight of the daily?
Well, I don't want to run the school district. There's 24,002 students right now, I think, and there's 3,900 employees, and that's a pretty big task. We found out the other day that Dr. Faust had been running 2 or 3 of the departments as well as doing his job. And he feels like now he's finally got department heads to handle things. And as a business owner, I understand that. So the duties of the school board are to hire the superintendent, to set the policies and the curriculum, and set what the teachers and the students are going to do, and also oversee the infrastructure, the buildings and so on, and the budget. And I'm going to do every one of those, absolutely every one of those. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Cromartie, if you're elected to the New Hanover County School Board, do you see yourself wanting to play a more active oversight role or a less active oversight role?
I think right now with what I've been doing, I'm pretty much satisfied with, which is volunteering at the schools, talking to the teachers, talking to the families, finding out what exact resources they need directly and when, and and getting them the resources they need immediately. So I see myself as a person who will be the voice to the superintendent about what's going on actively in the schools. I do not want to overstep bounds and make things more complicated, but I will let other board members and the superintendent know what I am doing. I'm a great person at finding a workaround and getting people resources through different organizations and boards and committees I serve on, and I want to continue doing that, but I want to do it on a broader scale for all schools. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mason, if elected to the school board, would you want to play a more active oversight role or a less active oversight role?
I think that there has to be a component of accountability, but I don't think that the school board itself should be running the whole system. That's why we have a superintendent. I believe that I would love to be able to just go and visit all of these schools and see the different situations. I've only had the opportunity to visit a few, and really have only been able to interact with a few of the principals. But I would love to partake in some of the activities that they have going on in all of these schools. I got into this because I love kids. I'm an educator because I love teaching. And so to be able to be partnered with our schools would be a much better avenue, I think, than having complete control of it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wildeboer, if elected to the school board, would you want to play a more active oversight role or a less active oversight role?
Well, that's a really hit it home question, because that's one thing I've been accused of a couple times, is maybe being a little bit too in the classrooms. I've had principals say, "Can I shut the door and tell you something?" I do try to follow the rules and bring the problem to the appropriate person in central office, but I do follow up. A lot of people bring it to that person, hands off, and trust that it's going to happen. Well, I do follow up to see if it does, if there is a solution, if the problem is taken care of. I've had situations at one middle school last year that we actually got a policy change because of a situation that I was made aware of by a parent that was a former student, and went through that whole thing and worked with Title IX to try to get that whole policy taken care of to help and protect our students. So so I guess I can't really give you a straight answer on that, because I think it is vital that the Board of Education knows what's going on in the schools by stopping in the schools, talking to principals, talking to teachers, and hearing from them, and then bringing that to the superintendent.
Thank you, sir, very much. Mr. Bullier, if elected to the New Hanover County School Board, would you want to play a more active oversight role or a less active oversight role?
View my job on the board as setting a compass on a ship and coming back every day and saying, has the heading changed? Why has it changed? Okay, that's a good idea. Let's try this. And working with our management team to make sure that the board's vision is realized. Somebody called me the other day when the hurricane was coming up to pay us a little visit and said, hey, what are we doing about schools? Are we closing them? You don't want me answering that question. My election to the board did not come with any advanced degree or knowledge in meteorology. I don't know at what point it becomes unsafe to operate a school bus. I don't know about damage to specific buildings. That's not our job. Accountability is a must. It's essential. Oversight is critical. But we have a tendency, I think, as a board at times to get too into the weeds and try to manage the system. We don't create the calendar. We vote on what has been created under our guidance and direction.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. McLaurin-Brown, if elected to the school board, would you want to play a more active oversight role or a less active oversight role, ma'am?
I think this is connected to the last question about the superintendent. I want to hold him accountable for managing the system and making sure that our policies are adhered to. I don't want to micromanage the school system and teachers and principals. I want him to have procedures in place that will allow us to know that we're on target for achieving the vision and the policies of our county. I would like to maybe interact with him every 9 weeks rather than once a year, so that we can stay on target, because we'll know and be getting feedback. I would like for us to have a system in place that allows us to harvest the ideas of our teachers and our staff and our community.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Barnhart, if elected to the New Hanover County School Board, would you want to play a more active oversight role or a less active oversight role?
I think initially my thought was a less oversight role, but the problem that I see happening is the school board doesn't have a good pulse with our staff and with our parents. And so we need to make sure that we're creating that connection with them, whether that's through committees, whether that's through visiting schools, like some of my colleagues have said, because we're making the policies that they have to then enforce. And so what we have to realize is our decision making, right, is the structure, and then Dr. Faust and his team are going to implement the structure. But we must know what's going on and where the concerns are so that when we write our policy, we're responding to what is needed. But with that being said, I also see myself as a board member saying, when I hear a problem, I want to help be part of the solution too. And so when transportation was an issue, I said, have we reached out to Cape Fear Community College and the trucking, and do we have a partnership? Can we collaborate with them to get more bus drivers when they're off season? And, you know, went on a tangent conversation with that because I want our students and staff to be successful.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Justice, if elected to the New Hanover County Board of Education, do you see yourself playing a more active oversight role or a less active oversight role?
I have one oversight role, that's the superintendent. I certainly did not run for the Board of Education and become a member to relive going back into education and micromanaging. I don't want to do that. I want to have confidence in who is running the programs. I am in touch with the schools. I have students in the schools. I have custody of my grandkids. I talk to teachers probably every day. I've talked to a couple today and other type of staff members. I go to the schools. I love the schools. That's my favorite places. That's not my job to micromanage or oversight those schools. But I do receive information, and I try and attempt to pass it on to the superintendent. If it's, you know, that's what we do. The people contact us all the time. The problem is that most of the time, I hate to say this, I don't get feedback about anything happening. It's heartbreaking. And, you know, that's the reality that we're dealing with. My oversight job is to work with a superintendent, not to micromanage the schools. I trust our schools. They're doing a great job, but they need support from the top.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
That can help them.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have our moderator reporters coming back, Michael Praats, Brenna Flanagan, and Rachel Keith. They have questions from the audience that they will ask each one of you. You'll have 90 seconds for a response to each one of these questions. And if I'm going correctly, I believe it is Rachel first. Rachel?
Okay, Veronica, this is for you. A constituent sent a question via the online questionnaire about the candidate's knowledge of what the local school board has control over. To you, what's a common misconception about the New Hanover County School Board's authority?
That's an interesting question because you're asking me to think what other people respond to what other people are thinking versus what I'm thinking. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, that could be budget or state school letter grades, school lunches,
Yes.
Social studies curriculum, what the state pays teachers and staff. I mean, a majority
Yeah.
of
So
their...
repeat that one more time.
So what misconception does the public have or other candidates have about control over our specific New Hanover County School Board? There are some misconceptions about what you have control over versus what you don't.
I would think the more complicated part of that would be the budget and understanding that when you have budget coming in from the county, the federal government, the state, and also from grants, the codes that outline how you can use that money and all the rules that are associated with whether or not you have the money here and you want to pay, you want to increase wages, and they know the money is there, but you're not allowed to use the money for that. So I think of all the things, that's the one that's most complicated for everyone to understand. It's the budgeting.
And is there a specific part of, is it salaries that you think is hard to unpack, or?
just based on being in the school board meetings from March 2021 to today, and listening to the bus drivers and listening to the teachers and teacher assistants, they certainly expressed a lot of concern and care in terms of just not believing that we aren't able to provide those increases. I do want to say that one of the things I think is going to be critical to everybody is advocating for more money so that we can increase wages for our teachers.
Next question was submitted to us online for Melissa Mason. Melissa, you've called the DA and sheriff complacent when they determined certain books were not deemed obscene. What makes you qualified to determine what is obscene?
I have an education. I've read these books. I've read a vast majority of these books. They are pornographic in nature. And if we want to get straight down to it, schools disseminating obscene material like this is a Class 1 felony. And the current policy really ties the hands of parents because it only allows them to remove a book from one school at a time. If a book is bad for one school, it's bad for all the schools. These books are very detailed and very inappropriate and can be damaging to our kids. What I would propose we do instead of allowing these books to be in schools is to form a committee comprised of parents and educators to review this material, anything controversial, and go through it. And it could be from any side of the aisle, but having a group, a committee, working together to figure that out. That would be my solution.
And so a follow-up to that, I've talked to the school district, and they allow parents to submit a form or email the district if they don't want their child to read a certain book or have access to a certain book. They've said that no parent has submitted an email or form. Do you think that process is not enough and that we need to go further in addressing these books?
Absolutely, because I can tell you as an involved parent, I had no idea that these books were in there. And when I say I was involved, and I've always been involved, I volunteer in my kids' classes, I tutor, and I've been in the schools. I go on field trips, I'm there. And so for me to have been an involved parent and not know that these are there, I can guarantee you the parents that are less involved because of work, because of other obligations, they don't know about these things.
Thank you.
All right, this question is for Pete Wildeboer. Do you support the right of public sector employees in North Carolina, including school workers, to collectively bargain?
Great question, boy. I had no idea that was coming. I think so. I came from New Jersey. Don't throw anything at me at this point, but I actually taught 1 year in New Jersey before coming down here, and I remember when I left New Jersey as a football coach, I was making, I don't know exactly, but I came down here for a similar job and was making over $1,000 less per sport. So I think it's very important that we give give our educators the right to get the highest dollar they possibly can. And I would support that. It's a question we would be beyond our realm of influence, but as far as my personal idea, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I've heard from several of my colleagues that we are, I think, 47th on the list of paid, as far as comparing to other states. And I think our educators, by far, do a great job. So I think that they deserve more money.
Thank you.
Dorian, this is for you. This comes from Carol Ellis. She asks, what steps do you think the school board should take to assure parents that their children are secure in New Hanover County schools?
Secure, I'm guessing, safety-wise?
Safety is what I'm thinking, yeah.
Okay, so one of the things they have already done is having one point of entry at the schools. Another thing we could work on is providing more exterior cameras at the schools. Another thing we could also work on is our relationship with our SROs and our mental health workers. I think that an SRO should be the last resource in any situation at the schools. I think first that we should provide mental health counseling for our students, and then we also need to probably get a little bit involved with the home life as well. I think that we also need to look at making sure that our students feel safe at school. What makes them feel safe? What makes the teachers feel safe? I think that we also need to make sure that we use more data-driven practices when it comes to our SROs, that we're not just throwing more money at SROs, and probably throw some money directly in the classroom to help the students and staff work together, as well as the parents work together and raise this child up to be a great citizen and have a world-class education.
Thank you. And with the SROs, right now it doesn't sound like they evaluate themselves on how well they're doing. If you were elected, would you want to see more of that data and how well they're doing?
Yeah, I would. I would also like to see, I know some great SROs who work closely with children and who also know the home life of what's going on with those children. And they understand that they have to interact with these children differently, and they appreciate that. And I think that relationship goes a long way.
Thank you.
This next question was submitted for Nelson. Nelson, you have said publicly that you would vote to end seclusion once we had a plan in place to end seclusion. You were waiting for the school improvement plans, and those have now been presented to the board. Julie Varnum has presented a plan to get training in place for staff. Now that we have this plan, are you ready to bring this to the board at the next meeting to vote to end seclusion?
I'm ready to bring this forward to the board at the next meeting to hear what our staff has to say. And if that's their recommendation, I think that, I'll look at all their information. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier with regards to management versus direction. I want to end seclusion and restraint in New Hanover County Schools. I think every member of our board does. What do you do when you go and you talk to EC teachers and you talk to your staff and they say, great idea, we're not ready, we need time? These people have doctorates in education. I'm humble enough to admit they know more than I do about the specifics of how to do what I want to achieve. It is painful to sit there sometimes and have people come and say, you guys are cruel. I have disagreed with every member on that board and will again, probably until the day I'm off. And that's okay. I have never worked with somebody who is cruel. Every single person I have worked with, from the top of central office to the very bottom, the lowest person on our school totem pole, loves kids and wants what's best for them. I am in that box. I want to end seclusion and restraint in New Hanover County Schools. I want to do it safely. I don't want to overburden our teachers while we do it. And I want to make sure that when it's done, we are not putting our children at risk. The question I need answered is, what happens when a child is in crisis? How are we going to help them without these practices?
So that leads into my follow-up of what specific maneuvers, behavioral maneuvers, are you looking for that would make you feel confident that, okay, we don't need seclusion anymore?
So again, that question has not been answered to me in a satisfactory manner at a board meeting. What happens when we have a child who is a serious threat to themselves or to staff or to other students? What is the plan? How does it look? How does it sound? How is it enacted? Our teachers need time. I mean, the motion that we're being asked repeatedly to consider is to wait for a year. And the reason we're being asked to wait for a year is because I think everybody knows this takes time. We have set the ship of New Hanover County Schools on a course to end this practice. I am waiting for the experts to tell us when we've arrived to those shores.
Thank you.
All right, this question is for Ms. Pat Bradford. Board meetings have become politicized and attended by groups protesting decisions and actions of the board. What role do you believe that those who don't have students in the school system, or even children, should play in influencing policy and decision-making on the board?
The schools are supported by taxpayers' dollars. So taxpayers are stakeholders. Parents are stakeholders. And they have the right to be heard. Now, I've puzzled over this because I want to see it change. Parental voice is not being heard. They come week after week, month after month, nothing gets done. So I'd like to see a series of forums where people come, because we've had 2 town halls and they've not been all that well attended. And I don't know why, other than maybe they think their voice isn't going to count. But I'd like to hear directly from the parents, directly from the taxpayers, what do you see as wrong? Maybe it takes one of those portals that you put answers into, so you have some degree of protection there. I don't know, but we need to hear from people. What do you think needs to be done? What do you think's being doing right? And then move forward that way. Everybody has a voice at the table. That's how I make decisions. I listen to what people say. I always have and I always will. I want to know your opinion even if you differ from me. Because sometimes I may think I have the answer and you have an answer and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I hadn't considered that. And that's how I make decisions. So I want to hear from everyone. I get a lot of phone calls. I get a lot of text messages and emails now. Parents and teachers are telling me what's going on. There's a lot of things that are very, very concerning. And I want to hear more. Once we know what the public thinks, then we can change things.
Thank you.
Josie, this question is for you. An audience member wrote, what can be done to change the, quote, culture of the current education system to one of excellence for all schools regardless of zip codes? And I think this person is talking about potentially recent data shows that the district is still highly segregated based on income and race. So how would you like to address that?
Well, people in the past who had done redistricting, I wasn't a part of that. So with that being said, I believe that all children can learn. When you hold kids accountable to the highest standard, that's what they're going to rise up to become. And that is what I think our leaders need to expect from our children. What I've seen happen over the last few years, it's been very evident, is a shift. Rather than academic excellence, we're talking on whole child development of the school system. When you open that door, what you are doing is you're saying schools are now responsible for something beyond academics. We have 5 failing schools and 8 D schools right now. To change that role of schools to now, in addition to the horrible academics that we are currently setting, you're also in charge of developmental needs of all children. I think we're setting up a lot of parents and teachers to not be successful. And so I think that when we work towards solving problems, we need to be realistic with the expectations, and first and foremost, that comes to academic accountability.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and this question is for Judy Justice. Many schools are facing a critical loss of teaching staff. Why do you think this is, and what can be done to improve teacher retention?
It's a huge problem nationally. It's been getting bad over the last decade across the nation. Here in North Carolina, it's been getting bad the last decade. Part of it is because the state has cut back repeatedly every year on the amount of money that it spends percentage-wise for our schools in general. Teachers have been feeling it now for that decade. They've never been the best paid. Now they're on the bottom. That's one reason that the stress is in their lives. But then we have the pandemic on top of that. And it has been devastating because they have worked, these amazing people, and the other staff, they were working 60, 80 hours a week, obviously not getting compensated, under a lot of stress. And then, on top of the pandemic, and I hate to keep going back to this, our leadership has not done what it needs to do in order to make our teachers feel like they are respected and appreciated. So, at this point, it's obviously, if nothing else, we need to get funding for resources. We need to be pressuring the state. We need to get more money from the county commissioners. We right now are the 5th wealthiest county in the state. We also have $1.5 billion sitting in the bank from the hospital sale and $388 million in an emergency fund that they refused to touch, even though it was promised to them at the time of the sale to schools, the public schools. So we need, honestly, at this point, possibly new people on the county commissioners. We need new people possibly in Raleigh. And we ourselves need to keep working in every way we can to get that money. And the public needs to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our question and answer part of this evening's event, but we are not done yet. We are going to give each one of our New Hanover County Board of Education candidates the opportunity to give you a 90-second closing statement. Could be on an issue that we have not discussed. It could be just their sales pitch for votes. It's all up to you. And we're going to begin and go in reverse alphabetical order. New Hanover County School Board candidate Pete Wildeboer. Mr. Wildeboer, you have 90 seconds.
Thank you so much. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. One of our biggest problems, as I've said before, is our school board. We need to fix that first. Some of the things, just to list off a few things that I have accomplished on my time on the board, because it is all about educating our students. Parent choice, putting the curriculum, being transparent, putting that curriculum on the website. That was, I was pushing for that. I also pushed for the town halls we mentioned here before. They're not perfect, but they are an opportunity to hear from people going back and forth. Student safety, and again, that is so huge to me. That is a very, very important thing. We actually went down, sat down with the Sheriff's Department, heard exactly what happened at New Hanover on that fateful day, so we can improve our whole county and make it better for everyone. And most importantly, well, equally as important, improving education. I was on the grading committee that got rid of the 50, giving somebody something for doing nothing. That was horrible. We need to hold the superintendent accountable. We need to work together as a board. We need to help each other out and pick each other up. But I think it's really important that we lead as a team, not 7 individuals fighting amongst each other. And I've done things like put Robert's Rules of Order back on the table so we can try that again. Again, that's not the end-all, fix-all, but it will help. If you want to find out more about me, wildeboerforeducation.com or my Facebook page, Wildeboer for NHCS Board of Education. And I do have some cards up there if you'd like to grab one.
Thank you, sir, very much. Next, for her closing statement this evening, we will go to Veronica McLaurin-Brown. Ms. McLaurin-Brown, you have 90 seconds, ma'am.
One of the things that I said when I started was that I was retired and traveling the world and got involved in advocating for children. I was in the school board room, and there are things that I saw, and many people have talked about it was dysfunctional. I want to do some things that I saw that need to be improved. I want to make children first in every decision we make if I'm on the school board. I want to make sure that all our certified staff and also our classified staff get paid what they deserve, that they have time during the school day, which is being taken away from them now, to do planning. I want to make sure that they have a seat at the table, that we have a process in place that we know that they're going to be involved in making decisions. I want to make sure that we work to get the resources that everybody needs. You have seen, if you have paid attention to the advocacy of Love Our Children, that I will work. And I know that making our school better is about passing effective policy. I worked every day from March 2021 to March 2023, except 2 days on that policy. Put me on the board, and I will continue that type of effort to change.
Thank you very much. Next, for her closing statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County School Board candidate Melissa Mason. Ms. Mason, you have 90 seconds.
I'm going to share a little personal story with you instead of being political. 3 years ago, my husband and I were involved in a motorcycle accident. We were off of our feet. We were unable to do a lot of things for our family, for our kids. And what happened was amazing. A community came around us and supported us. It was a church community. It was a school community. And it was strangers that I had never even met bringing us meals. We are told right now that this country is divided. But if you look at every person on this panel, we are united. We're united in how we love kids and how we want what is best for kids. You see an R by my name, but that does not mean you know who I am. Who I am is someone who fights for kids. I'm a mom, I'm an educator, and I'm a warrior. And that's what I stand for. I just wanted to leave with one final thing. Abraham Lincoln kind of adjusted this, but I'm going to read this direct from the Bible. Matthew 12:25 says, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand." We have to stand united for our kids. MelissaForEducation.com if you want to learn more.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Next, for her closing statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County School Board candidate Judy Justice. Ms. Justice, 90 seconds, ma'am.
I ran for school board because education, children are my passion, giving them an opportunity to have a wonderful life. And in our society, our public school systems, the beginning outside of the home, the best way to do that. I have been a very effective board member considering what I have had to face. I have had a lot of opposition to bringing ideas, putting them in front of the public, and working on them to make our schools better. And yet, I've managed to get 80% of the items on the agendas over the last 4 years of the 9 school board members I have worked with outside of information coming from central office, you know, informing the public about programs. That says a lot, and it's been hard, especially since without us seeing and listening to people and these ideas are coming from the public. I've also been totally transparent. And I am held accountable, and I want to be holding people I work with accountable to making sure our kids get the absolute best education. And because of that, some people think that I can be disagreeable. No, I'm focused on what we're supposed to be there for. And other people aren't. But now we're having an election. There's a lot of people up here I feel really good about, and I hope that we can work together on the board to continue to improve our system, because we've got one of the best education systems because of the people in our community in the state, in my opinion.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, for his closing statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County School Board candidate Dorian Cromartie. Mr. Cromartie, you have 90 seconds, sir.
The reason I'm running for New Hanover County Board of Education is because I plan to work for you. I want to make sure that all schools are safe. I want to make sure that all schools have high expectations and well-trained teachers with good professional development. I want to make sure that our attrition rate for our teachers go down dramatically so we don't have the continuous cycle of failing schools because we have new staff every single year. I want to make sure that we offer workforce opportunities for all students across the county. I want to make sure that we sit down together, define what is excellence, and then reverse engineer that and make sure it's available at every single school for every single child. Education is very important. It is almost a national security issue. If the population is not educated, we will fail, not only as a county, but as a United States of America. It's that important. So I'm running to work for you, for your children, to do what is best for all children. My name is Dorian Cromartie. You can know more about me at electdorian.com. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, for her closing statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County Board of Education candidate Pat Bradford. Ms. Bradford, you have 90 seconds, ma'am.
Okay. I told you I'm going to be accountable. I tell you, I am transparent. I have sat here tonight, and I cannot let some things go because truth hasn't been spoken. Go to last night's board meeting, almost 6 hours, go to last night's board meeting, start at the beginning, and go all the way to end. It started with an argument before the agenda was approved. It ended with an argument and name-calling after 10:30. I wrote down some notes last night. Divisive, contentious, disruptive, argumentative, self-aggrandizing, self-centered,
grandstanding, disrespectful, rude, immature. Mr. McManus said, we don't play well. Our board is broken. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. The people that got us into this mess that we're in can't get us out. We need fresh leadership. I've been a leader in the community. I have a proven track record. I'm solution-driven. My team that I lead, I have one employee that's going to be with me 20 years in just a few months. I lead in a culture of honor. I bring that to the school board. We have got to have people who are accountable, that put children first, parents first, academics first. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next for his closing statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County School Board candidate Nelson Bullier. Mr. Bullier, you have 90 seconds, sir.
Thank you, and I don't disagree with all of those notes. You know, and I own my part in that. But you know, I sit here tonight, and believe it or not, you'll be stunned. I'm really hopeful for the future of New Hanover County Schools, because this job is 90% relationships. We all have really good ideas. But, you know, sitting next to me is a businesswoman. How cool would it be to take that experience and say, hey, you know what? Let's go do something with CTE. I know these people. Let's bring that in. You know, we have a veteran. Hey, look, Dorian and I, you know, agree on a lot of issues. We have so many military families. Hey, there's this problem in the community. We know X. We know Y. This job is about relationships. We need funding for programs. You want to end seclusion and restraint? Great. How are we going to do it? Where's that money coming from? That's a relationship with your commissioners and relationships on the board. We can't get anything done if we can't talk to one another. And that starts with listening. Most difficult decision I made while I was on the board started with a conversation with the woman to my right, because she was nonstop. It was a lot. And it was right. And I was wrong. I was wrong. We kept those schools closed for too long. We did. And I was the only vote. And it cost me relationships. It cost me friendships that I'll never recover. It was the right thing to do. I'm a soldier. I will do the hard thing. I will listen, and I will stand up for what I believe in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, for her closing statement this evening, we will go to New Hanover County School Board candidate Josie Barnhart. Ms. Barnhart, you have 90 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you. I believe the directional shift that I want to see for our school board is academic accountability and creating opportunities for all students. In order to do that, I see us holding accountable the programs that are not consistent across our county, creating more opportunities at a middle school level and exposure opportunities at the elementary school level. And just like Nelson said, that takes relationship building. I intentionally put myself into a conversation that was one of the most divisive times in our community to stand up for our kids. I did it respectfully and intentionally because I knew that this was the right thing to do. I did not stop, and I think Mr. McManus called me persistent, and I rallied people in this community. Because when you're able to talk to people, even if we don't see eye to eye, you're going to come up with better solutions and clear direction of where we need to be going. So for me, I'm going to continue to build relationships, and that's going to be with my fellow board members. I'm going to be one of a team of 4 that you get to choose who's going to work together to bring this correction and vision to life for our schools. I want to work with our county commissioners as well as our business organizations, but our parents and our staff. All of us together need to be working for that common goal. I'm going to work with whoever gets elected with intentionality and integrity. My name is Josie Barnhart, and you can check me out at josieforschools.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you give all 8 of our candidates a round of applause, please? Ladies and gentlemen on the dais, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And also, will you give a round of applause for our 3 reporter moderators, Michael, Rachel, and Brenna? You'll be able to find the recording of this forum on WECT.com and also the websites of our media consortium partners, WHQR and Port City Daily. Please do not forget, early voting begins on October the 20th. You can find all of the dates, times, and locations on WECT.com as well. We will have 2 more of these forums in the next 2 Wednesday evenings. Next Wednesday at this same time, we will have the 4 candidates running for the 2 open seats on New Hanover County Commissioners. And in 2 weeks, we will have the 8 candidates running for the 4 contested General Assembly seats for New Hanover and Brunswick counties. We're talking about the Mr. Eiler and Mr. Terashima, Mr. Lee and Ms. Mason, Mr. Davis, Ms. Deloche, and Ms. Butler and Mr. Hennett. So those candidates for General Assembly will be here 2 weeks from this evening. We will also stream those on WECT.com. Thank you for taking an interest and being better educated when you left than you got here. Again, for those of you on the dais, thank you very, very much. Good night, everybody.